Okay, hello everyone. We are doing a Wolfram language design review. This is part of our incremental language development series, and we have a variety of topics here. SpokenString. That is really lame.
Right. So this was an example that was fed to us here, and we have Francisco and I believe Danielle also potentially talk about this. I wasn't in the meeting when this originally came up, but it got fed in, and I think it's obviously a suboptimal result.
Only to add that we were already doing some changes in SpokenString. In a branch, we have all these changes, and we haven't yet got into this option of real precision limit. So this is a good opportunity to decide what to do.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I don't understand. What is the, but this is just wrong, this thing here. The default, what's the default value? Oh, I see. The default value of real precision limit is 3. Well, that's kind of crazy. It should be automatic. Right? The default should be automatic. And if there's an explicit precision, I say read all the digits.
Yeah, I agree. So if a number comes with 5 digits of precision, we show the 5. If there are 10, 10, or whatever, right?
Yeah. If it has an explicit precision tagging, as opposed to $machine precision, right? Because if I say precision of n of pi, it's machine precision. So machine precision
right. I think what's weird here, like for example, the option print precision, right? That only affects machine precision numbers.
Yes.
Right. If you do style of n
right.
Pi with print precision goes to 5, you'll see 5 digits. But if you do n of pi back, n of pi comma 10 with inside of the same style, you'll see 10 digits.
Yeah. So what's your point? Look,
my point is that I think it's odd that this thing applies to both machine precision and arbitrary precision numbers as opposed to just machine precision numbers.
Yeah, so that's what we should do. It might
so,
be
so this option
to machine precision limit.
So this option will apply only to the machine precision values, like the front end, for example, when you
yes,
choose.
And if you've got some other thing with 10,000 digits, then read 10,000 digits. Right? I can't see any reason why you would want to not do that. See what I'm saying?
Well, if it were actually spoken, if you ran speak of this, you wouldn't want it to read 10,000 digits.
Yeah, but I think there's a different thing, which is SpokenString, arguably, should have some overall limit. That's a different thing. I'm not sure that it's worth us worrying about this right now, but I can see that as
right.
being
There's a similar issue with integers, right? Like if you have, a million factorial or something, you don't want it to actually, you wouldn't want to speak that giant integer either. I don't know if this, it has an integer limit. Oh, but it's
and also there is a string length limit, which I guess that's the one that maybe we should play more with that option.
No,
maybe
strings and symbol names, right? Look, I think this is one of these things where it isn't broken. Let's not hyperventilate about fixing it. Let's fix this particular issue and let's not worry about anything else. Okay?
Okay, that's fine.
And maybe we should say machine precision limit and we should say real precision limit as a separate thing and default it to infinity.
A given precision number.
What's that?
No, that I think it would be better to have automatic as value
For which?
for the real precision limit.
No, but I'm saying that you want to switch. If you have machine precision, read 3 digits. If you have arbitrary precision, specify, just like with integer limit and so on, that you don't want to go on for 2 years reading stuff. See what I'm saying? So breaking it into 2 options.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So real precision limit and something like machine precision limit. Okay, let's move on. StringTransform.
So this is partly from going through low hanging and some of our other outstanding tickets, but we have a handful of existing string transformation functions that either deal with capitalization or encoding, and a bunch of proposed or semi-greenlit functions that deal with variations. And what I'm wondering is, we've looked at those individually, but holistically, do we want to have some sort of parent string transform or text transform function and have different methods of converting it? Or do we really want to have a URL encoding, a slugifying function, capitalizing?
I think some of these.
What does slugify even mean?
It means, so a slug is like in typography, like a hyphen or an underscore. It's to connect words together. So like URL slugifying is removing spaces and putting hyphens or underscores.
Yeah, I think there are different categories of thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are things where it is something like capitalize, decapitalize.
Kind of makes sense as a first class.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I also understand what that is. I mean, camelize, I can sort of.
Yeah, but these are all.
But string smooth and string contract, I have no idea what those are going to do.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
I like string implode and string explode as names.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what they do, but
yeah, what do they do?
So I believe those ones are actually in low hanging that we'll be looking at in a little.
All right, okay, fine. I personally favor string encode, string decode as a generic thing in which we give, camel, case, slugified, etc., as the destinations. Because I think that a typical thing is you've got text and you want to do something like you want to create a URL, you want to encode that string in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you choose different things you want to for the encoding, but they're all sort of the same idea. So that will be my
Well, one point might be that there are cases where I don't know if these are really different, but there are cases where it's like you have a big thing of text, like the email, quote unquote. And then there are other cases where, like, for example, I have something in camel case and I want to convert to snake case or something like that, where it's more of a, you have like a limited string and it's more of a conversion operation.
I know. I think I agree with you. And I think that encode decode should probably mostly deal with the short case. You've got one sentence, you want to put dashes, you want to put camel casing, those kinds of things. Because I think that's what most of these are. The email quote unquote thing is a different thing. And I don't know whether there's a category of thing like that. We can decide that later. Because that to me is more text related than it is a string related thing. Because it's something that involves, lines and things like that. As opposed to the pure, I want to make this camel case, or I want to, put dashes and so on.
Well, so what's the distinction then between camel case, making something camel case, and capitalize? Other than just that capitalize is a more common, human understood thing.
Well, I think capitalize is with separate words, whereas camel case is the words are smooshed. Camel case,
well,
look.
No, I understand what the difference between the functions would be, but the question is, if both of them basically take a bunch of words separated by spaces, and one of them capitalizes the first letters in some way.
I think that string encode should allow capitalize as a string second argument.
So I'm just asking then, what is the what is the reasoning behind which capitalize also gets its own function when camel case
Because
doesn't?
it's popular.
Okay, fine,
Camel case, the camel is just not such a popular animal.
fine.
Um,
One other thing would be, what about cases where it's more of a conversion operation than just an encoding, like the case of convert it from snake case to camel case?
what is snake case?
That's like underscores. I mean, there are a lot of cases like that where you can probably figure out what the input encoding is, but there might be other cases where you need to know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second argument could be a rule. You could do string encode snake to camel.
Yes,
but then it sounds like maybe it could be string convert instead of encode.
I agree.
Right. And
Yeah.
I was going to also raise the objection that, string encode sounds like it might be similar to base encode, but it's right. It's a completely
it's
different
more
thing.
string convert. Although I don't really completely like the word convert, because these are that suggests a very heavyweight operation. These are very superficial operations.
Transform.
No, well, that's what you've got here, but I think that's too fancy. Like flash transform.
I don't think convert sounds particularly heavyweight. I mean, it doesn't sound any heavier weight than encode.
Translate.
That's languages.
Yeah. So you say string convert.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
What other words are there?
I assume if there was a convert, there wouldn't be a decode. Also.
Yeah, that's right. There wouldn't be a decode.
String alter.
A little bit too.
It's a little vague. Alter it how?
Okay, we've got string transform there. Transmute.
String conventioned.
I think that's really obscure.
And should it be string or text?
String.
Although there are probably going to be some operations that are very text-like,
Right.
like, title case or something like that.
Don't we have a title case mechanism right now?
Well, that's a second argument to capitalize.
I mean, these are all dealing with like words separated by spaces. And it kind of feels like text.
Well, no, not if it's the snake case to camel case.
There's not words. They're just separated by different things.
Like underscores or something. Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
it's not just like
generic
strings
name.
of characters. They're words with semantics.
What is the generic name for things like snake case?
Cases?
That sounds like grammar, though.
String case convert or text case convert?
I think case. The case is no. I mean,
right. I mean,
like
I was right. See, this is why I was trying to get convention in there, right? Because you have a camel case convention, you have a right, the snake
Title
case.
case. Is title case a convention? Maybe.
Yeah, that's a Chicago Manual of Style.
string style convert. String rendering convert. String.
It kind of like style convert.
Yeah, I think style's not bad, although it does sound a bit like you're going to make it red.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, just the Wikipedia page for camel case, snake case, etc., is called naming convention programming.
Yeah.
So we could do string convention convert. Maybe we need a better list of exactly what operations we want to support before we come up with the name.
I mean, they're mostly space.
Right.
Yeah, I think both snake case and kebab case are basically versions of slugifying.
String word. I don't know. Okay, look, it's going to be one of these things like string style convert or string. I just think StringTransform sounds too general.
Okay. Well, like Itai said, we can work on enumerating exactly
Fine,
the
let's
transformations
enumerate
we
those
have to
things.
go from
Okay.
there.
I guess we're on to low hanging now. So we bring up low hanging here. And how long have these things been hanging? Have they rotted on the tree yet?
Any of the rotted things we've basically tried to prune off into the dead category at the bottom.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we just start. Where do we start here? We start here.
So reviewed were the ones we looked at already. So yeah, needs review is our personal identifier is our first one.
Huh?
So
I
this
don't
was
even
basically
understand what this is supposed to be.
This is a canonical representation of a person with their honorifics and with their first name, last name, and so on. It's something we've talked about for a long time. It's something that I think in the people data world, this is something that should grow out of the people data, world. Do you see what I'm saying?
Seems like it should also handle, I mean, there are also other naming conventions that places have. I mean, like, for example, well, yeah, other than just first name, last name.
No, I know Latin America, with
Right.
kinds of elaborate things.
Right. And then there's, yeah.
I think this should be fed to Alan and people, because this is the place where this will start, will presumably be, encoding our people data in a way like this, if we care. Make sense to people?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay, system status. Now, this is something we've talked about repeatedly, right?
Well, isn't this, I mean, I suppose it depends on exactly what information we want, but isn't this just the machine tab of system information?
I think so, except that I think it probably runs in real time. See what I'm saying? I mean, I think that's
Right. I mean, well, so does system information of machine or whatever is the correct.
I don't think there's anything here. I think we can move on. Young Tableau. I think we finally got this as a WFR, right?
Yep.
I don't really know whether there's anything beyond that we need right now. I don't think Young Tableau, I think there's sort of a, is there anything we particularly need? I mean, it seems like we have some Young Tableau functionality.
Well, what about involutions?
Well, I think is Jose here. I think.
Yes. So there are many things that can be done with Young Tableaus. I mean, they are fairly specialized in the theory of representations of groups. For example, one thing that I would add here is the little boot Richardson rule to multiply 2 Young Tableaus. That's a standard computation. But there are many things that can be done with them.
Well, but you think it's basically a WFR story for now?
Yes, for the moment, yes. Yes.
But Brad's comment about involutions, is there something in the permutation system that should deal with involutions? I needed them recently.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the encyclopedia and it says that the number of involutions is also the number of standard Young Tableau within cells.
But I understand, but this has a, I mean, there's an involution count here, and that's fine and dandy. I'm not sure that the question is it useful to have a way of generating permutations that comes from involutions? Because, we have a bunch of permutation functionality in the system. We don't have involution functionality in the system.
Yeah, and the involutions were in combinatorica last time I checked. And I think parity pairings is now on the function repository.
Okay, well, fine. But okay, look, bottom line here is, and this is a question for Jose, do we think that there's an addition to the built-in system functionality for permutations that should include things with involutions?
We could, and there are. I mean, I have a full package to work with Yontaplos. Can I share for a moment and you see this type of thing that it does?
Yeah, go ahead. You share?
Yes. Okay. So this is.
My
so
God.
the yeah. So there are lots of relations with respect to partitions, and then
looks to me like a ripe to be a packlet.
Yes. This, I mean, and they have nice type settings. There are skew tableaus. And
This looks
then,
lovely. What is this? Is this part of exact? Or what?
Yes. There are relations to various things and manipulations of words, some games, symmetric polynomials. Yes, they are very important in symmetric polynomials, and then various computations. These precisms are like powers, and the Littlewood Richardson rule is the products. Let's see if I have examples. Yes, so this is like multiplications.
Well, this is quite magnificent. I mean, it would be great to have this be a packlet and to expose some of these things in the function repository.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a good project. I mean, maybe that's a project, maybe it's something Brad could get involved with at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a design, I mean, do you think there is a built-in function design that's in the making there or not?
Well, my point of view was always with respect to manipulations of tensors. This could be generalized and made a thing by itself, but it would require substantial work, I think.
All right, fine. So I think what we are thinking about now is a packlet with exposure of certain functions through the function repository.
Okay.
All right, onward. You know, this should be spherical, not sphere. Spherical, distant spherical graphics, etc. In my opinion.
I can update that.
But I think this is a very fine thing, and I hope Brad is going to be working on it. And it's similar to Geo, but it's only spheres and it's in radians. Right, guys?
Yes, there is also the relation with Astro functionality. So we would have like 3 families of functions that do similar things. So perhaps there is some connection, or we can use functions that work in the 3 cases or something like that.
I think we
Yeah,
should.
what would be the word? I mean, if we wanted to have, if we had a function that worked in all 3 cases, and we didn't want to, you know, make 3 symbols for it, what would we call it?
I think it's a mistake. I think that they all have their own little tentacles, and I think people think of them somewhat differently. I mean, I think spherical, you know, I think this is really for dealing with things on conceptual spheres. Like spherical triangle is something that we definitely want here. But spherical triangle on the sky or on the earth is really not that important.
So the only thing I worry about is situations where, you know, you kind of have to convert from one to the other because, well, there's this function, there's this, what is fundamentally a geometry operation. And so that's why it's only in the spherical world and not in the astro world. But obviously you can do it in the astro world, and maybe I want to do it. And so I have to do some annoying conversion.
Well, we should talk about how the conversions work. I mean, so in other words, let's say you have spherical position and you say geoposition of spherical position. What happens?
I think that case is worse than the Astro case because there's some issue about oblateness, right?
Yeah, I know. Right.
Right. Geo is the hardest, you know.
But we could have,
you
know, if you say geoposition of spherical position, you know, it could simply take a geo model that is a sphere. I mean, it's going to do something somewhat goofy because it's going to say it's going to be a geo model of a sphere that has a, you know, radius of, you know, whatever it is, 6,000 kilometers or whatever, 8,000 kilometers.
Well, or maybe one. I mean, you could just do, what is it? GeoModel Arrow 1, I think, does that, doesn't it? It makes a you know, a spherical model of diameter of 1 meter or radius of 1 meter or something.
That seems really horrifying.
It would get all the same results as you know, spherical geometry functions, like spherical distance and so on, would presumably return, you know, the, well, actually, I guess
I
yeah,
think
spherical
it would
distance would return the same thing as geodistance, but that might be pretty bizarre.
I think it will be crazy. I think it's better to just admit we live on the Earth and convert, if you do geoposition of spherical position, to just convert to the corresponding angle position on the Earth. I mean, I think. Astro is a little different because there's genuine spheres involved. But again, you know, on a sphere, spherical, whatever, we're not worrying about relativistic corrections. We're not doing any of that stuff. It's just a conceptual mathematical sphere, which itself will be very useful. And I have a feeling that other forms of geometry, like hyperbolic geometry, we might eventually want to have, you know, hyperbolic distance and things like that. Just like,
So,
go ahead.
So when you are talking about this ideal sphere, so it wouldn't have a radius, so it's not radius 1.
It's radius 1. Spherical distance would by default be radius 1, I would assume.
But it would take also a radius, just in case you want to
Yes, I think
another
so.
sphere.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Now, and I think you're living on a single sphere. So, you know, anything that is like, you're going out into the region world if you want to know the distance between points on two different spheres and all kinds of things like that. Anyway.
Well, we would have to distinguish, and we do this in Astro already. Astro distance from Astro angular separation, right? Because you want to distinguish the distance as an angle from the physical distance.
Right. Well, so it's probably a spherical angle difference or something. But I also think we really need spherical triangles, which are, you know, definitely a thing, much more so than they are a thing on Geo and all those kinds of places.
Right. In Geo, you would just use a generic geopolygon with 3 vertices.
Right. But, you know, there's spherical trigonometry that we really want to support properly on a sphere.
Yep.
All right, let's keep going. All strings.
Oh, sorry, one more question. If we're gonna do spherical triangles, would we do hyperbolic triangles too?
I'd like to. I'd like to do hyperbolic geometry as well. Yes.
Well, I mean, I suppose we could do the distance, right? But you can't embed hyperbolic geometry in 3 Euclidean dimensions. So,
right, but then we have a purely symbolic hyperbolic distance and hyperbolic, you know.
You have a whole set of hyperbolic projections and so on.
Yeah.
The hyperbolic geometry is actually useful in classical algebraic geometry too, through the Riemann uniformization theorem. So there would be lots of interesting examples.
Well, and also the fact is that we can obviously have projections, we can have models, you know, the Poincare disk and so on. You know, it's clearly useful because we can have things where there are things that have coordinates in hyperbolic space, and then we can render them in a kind of, you know, hyperbolic, the analog of GeoList plot, hyperbolic list plot with projections. It really does seem like a useful thing to be thinking about. It's something, you know, it's a well understood 150-year-old kind of mathematical concept of hyperbolic space, which I think we should support, particularly with the rendering through projections and so on.
Yeah, Felix Klein and all of that.
Indeed. So I mean, I think that's the, you know, that Brad, that's the future for this project of yours with spherical, you know, geometry, trigonometry, hyperbolic, etc. Let's move on here. Okay. This particular thing finds strings in a byte array. I assume that that's a WFR function already, is it? If it isn't, it should be.
I don't think that makes any sense.
Well, it's the same thing that strings does in, you know, the Unix operating system. You take a binary and you look for things which are coherent sequences of ASCII-like characters. Yes, in the world of modern Unicode, it makes less and less sense.
And also, if you've ever run strings, it returns a lot of garbage in addition to meaningful stuff.
Indeed. This is not a profoundly important function. And I know people have worked on this at the summer school, and I'm sure we can find one of those implementations and turn it into a WFR. And I think that's what we should do.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let's continue here. Are these in WFR now? Yes. Do we think we want to have these as system functions? It seemed mildly useful, but I haven't been profoundly.
Well, actually, do we have, this is a naive question, do we have like built-in functions for like partial sums and partial products?
What do you mean by
that? Well, I mean, so it returns the list of if you have a series, it returns each sort of as it's summing them up, each element in the series.
Like the opposite of differences.
Accumulate.
I was going to say it accumulate, but I don't think that's what you want. Something more symbolic, or
I mean something with the syntax of sum. Maybe this isn't relevant to this, but I mean, like we have sum, but the question is, is there a version of sum that's like sum list, where it returns the list of the partial sums?
Which is like what accumulate is to an explicit list, sum list would be to a symbolically specified set of list elements.
Right.
Presumably you'd give it a length, how many you want, or something like that, Christopher?
I'm guessing, yeah. I mean, similar syntax to
in other words,
sum.
you're not looking for a symbolic representation. Well, I hope that would.
But no. This is basically like a symbolic fold or symbolic fold list, where instead of the fold elements being generated by, explicitly, you're imagining that there's a generator of the successive fold elements.
I guess. I mean, I was thinking this is related to the function you have on screen. I don't think it's actually that related. And I guess in the sum case, it's just a cumulative table. In the product case, I guess it's fold of times of table or something. Yep. So I'm not sure it makes that much sense.
Okay, do we care about built-in geometric and arithmetic sequences?
So we have already power range.
Power range. Yeah.
So it's almost the same thing.
Yes. I mean, I think the people who should be asked about these are Roger and the RSolve folk, because I can imagine them being excited about having symbolic geometric sequences, where you can have geometric sequence with symbolic parameters here, and where you can, including one where you don't have the number of elements here.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be something that could work with the lazy stuff too.
It could, but it's also relevant just for the RSolve thing. So can somebody feed that, please, to, I guess it's Roger and Adam?
Yeah, we'll check in.
Okay, but otherwise we're, we've got WFRs for this and we're good. Should be done post version 11. Well, I have to say this thing turned out to be much messier than we expected, and I think it's happily in WFR and shouldn't go anywhere else.
Okay.
The heck is this? And it isn't subsets? Isn't this just subsets?
No, it's keeping order.
Well, doesn't strike me as profoundly important. I don't see a use case.
I have a similar functions heavily used in patterns, what I call splits. And it also included an empty list in each of them, like in one of them.
No, because
That you're using.
Anytime you
your
include an
pattern
empty list,
analysis.
you can include 2 empty lists.
Yeah, I was going to say that that's not well defined.
No, it's like you start with you also have a second argument to these functions, how many splits you want. So it's like list partitions 2. So, and you partition on list on all possible ordered sublists, including an empty one.
Right, but that's relevant for your pattern utilities. And it could be that the better way to specify this is just by giving some pattern and having it be able to generate, like triple blank, comma, double blank or something, which is a richer language that lets you specify things like, oh, I want a minimum size partition of this thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
How is it related to groupings?
I'm not sure. It's a good question.
I think you might be able to do this with groupings.
Well, in any case, I don't think there's any place to go with this here. I think this is happily WFR'd for now. Natural language string. I see. I mean, this is kind of like the synthesized, like what Wolfram Alpha Notebook Edition does, of synthesizing a natural language input for something. I believe that there are functions like this that Michael and those guys have found useful. Can we ask them about this, please? They may already have some function like this. Make sense? Avery, take that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this thing is important and we've never gotten around to it. This is basically doing natural language lookups on data sets. This project should be in the global project list, and it's something we need to get to at some point. I don't think there's a small lightweight function to be built around it.
Is this like the data container stuff?
Not quite. This is
related.
No, it's more like semantic import related. It's part of the gaggle with semantic import.
Okay.
And I don't know where that's getting worked on. I mean, Jeremy, I think, was working on some of that stuff. But this is not dead, and we should make sure that this gets attached to the appropriate thing in the global project list.
Yep, I can do that.
Index by, I haven't a clue what it is. Anybody know?
No, it's pretty much with the question marks where we didn't have any extra notes on that one. So, I mean, most of the talk we're talking about these days with indexing has to do with supplied. So,
yeah, let's just kill that one. I don't know what it is. Sequence select. What is this? I see.
Yeah, it's kind of.
But is it in WFR or is it not?
Our proposal was to put it in WFR. A lot of these suggestions predate WFR existing. So
obviously,
not all of them have
been
indexed there.
Wait, sorry, does this consider every possible subsequence?
I think it presumably considers contiguous sequences.
Yeah, I think the idea was contiguous.
Sure.
I mean, this function, don't we already have sequence cases?
Yes.
Is it the same type of meaning? Does the analogy hold, in other words?
Yes, although I guess that you want to use, double hash, like instead of hash, if you know what I mean, in the sequence select to be very consistent.
I think I agree.
Actually, sorry, that wouldn't be consistent with sequence cases. I misremembered, because sequence cases has the list on the left-hand side of the rule.
But sequence select seems like it goes naturally with sequence cases.
Yeah, the main difference though is just that sequence cases can be a lot smarter than sequence select can, because it It can use pattern matching. It can reason about the pattern, so it doesn't have to actually consider all n squared cases or whatever it is.
But sequence cases is not contiguous.
It's not?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It says
We have then
sublists.
subset cases is the other one you are thinking about.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Which could have been maybe an orderless version of sequence cases, or is effectively.
Yeah, it is effectively.
Okay.
I don't know why sequence select doesn't exist.
Does
It's
that mean it
perhaps
should
a
be a
historical.
subset? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that it's probably a historical thing. We created sequence cases, positions, and count together, and then split. And we didn't continue with the family.
Although I have to say I haven't missed it.
Right. Well, and if we added it, would we also have to add? If we also have subset cases, would we also have subset select?
Let's put this in WFR and not worry about it for right now.
Okay.
Who does that?
Well, it
Or is
says
this what-
bracket WFR. Does that mean it's already in WFR?
No, it doesn't.
That means we're proposing to put it in WFR rather than as a system function.
So I guess, Avery, you make a ticket and
I think so. I mean, does not look to me like it's more than a 15-minute job.
I'm sure it's more than a 15-minute job.
Then it may not be.
In fact, I think when you say something like it's not more than a 15-minute job, that makes it exponentially worse.
Okay, fine.
I'm convinced of that.
I don't think this is high priority. I think it's one of these things that we could have as a things to put in WFR when there's an opportunity to do it. Okay, deep pattern is sort of interesting. And that has to do with head matching.
I mean, not as it's being proposed here.
No, okay, it doesn't. I see not.
Well, maybe there could be a second argument to the deep pattern that's like matches the sequence of heads going down or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a family of things that we have never done, which is just like we have double blank representing an arbitrary sequence of things in a sort of space-like direction. We do not have things in a tree-like direction. We don't have a way of specifying if I have a thing where I'm saying, f of f of f of f of f of x, right? We have no pattern that will match that with an arbitrary sequence of f's.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and f of bracket f of bracket f. I think we don't have that either. Or some other.
You mean this?
That type of thing, yes. I mean, with other symbols other than f's.
What do you mean? Well, we don't have this particular thing. We don't have a way of saying ... If this was list f, then we can just say f ... And that will match that, right? But we don't have a similar way. We don't have an analog of ... or blank that represents tree-like, that represents these tree-like cases.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably should be instead of repeated something, called something like nested.
Indeed.
With the similar arguments, like how many times you can nest this thing.
Yes. I think it would be interesting to explore. I don't know how difficult such a thing would be to implement. And I do wonder whether it is relevant to the generalization of up values, which is something we've been meaning to do for 35 years. In other words, if we had such a thing, could it generalize up values? Because right now, up values are one level You can say f of g of x, and you can associate that value with g. But if it's f of g of h of x, you can only go one level there.
Mm-hmm.
I think this should be explored. Nested, these two cases, I think this is worth exploring, and I think that's deeply related to this. It's a good ILD LCC thing to explore.
Okay, yeah, we'll add it to the roadmap.
Okay. This wasn't proposed by Dave, I assume.
No.
I do like this idea of naming functions for longtime employees. We have gray, we have light blue, which is almost for me.
So it is. I'd never even noticed that. Wow, in all these years.
And how is this different from quiet?
Because it's a block. Because it's temporary.
So it's quiet.
So it is. Doesn't seem like it's different, does it?
But having a message off is different from one that's quieted, right? I mean, it's probably rare that code cares, but it could be, right?
Let's throw this into the error handling discussion. It's probably not relevant, but just in case there's something here, let's put it in the error handling agenda. Okay. Well, we've got this. This is threaded.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Initialization option for module. I think that's what we've got now with cleanup and so on, isn't it?
That's what this seems to be hinting at. I'm not absolutely sure, but I think that's what this is getting at.
Okay. Let's assume it. Max for rules.
That just seems bizarre.
It's bizarre, and I think it's handled by association. Well, I don't know what it is, but it seems bizarre to me. Pattern equal. Well, this is something related to Nick's pattern unification work. And I mean, there's a whole gaggle of pattern utility functions, which we definitely are interested in. But then I think that the pattern utility functions, if they're not in the global project list, they should be, and there's a gaggle of them. And Nick, I think, already has drafts of a bunch of them. That's where this should be. Infix match queue. It's not floating my boat. Post set. Isn't that, I have not been using this thing, but isn't slash equals something like this?
No. Right, because that applies something to X and returns the new value, right? That's no different from X equals f of X. F / equal X.
Well, you're saying,
I guess X / equal F is equal to X equals f of X. This is saying.
Well, you're saying if I say XX equals list ABC, and then I say X / equals reverse. Right?
I'm missing a slash, but.
What? Where am I missing a slash?
Before.
No, it's slash equals, isn't that right?
No, it's / equals. You just divided by.
I don't know what the heck I did here.
Right, you divided all the elements by reverse.
Okay, and now I've got this. Has anybody been using this thing?
A little.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it's got some fans. Okay.
So this is right. This is saying you do x equals, you have x equals 1, and then you have x equals 2x, and it returns 1 instead of 2, which I suppose is theoretically useful, but I have a hard time getting excited about this.
My boat is not being floated here. Let's move on. I don't know. Anybody excited about this? Seems hard to define.
Yes, I think length is too important to complicate.
Agreed.
Don't we have this now?
We have this, right? That's
Yeah,
time remaining.
Time remaining.
Yeah.
So it's a
wait, time remaining pulls the nearest
constraint.
time constraint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I say time constrained of
time remaining, comma 5, you should get 5 or very close to 5.
Out of curiosity, does time remaining work inside of functions with the time constraint option?
Good question.
Well, it should.
I would guess yes.
It should detect the nearest time constraint.
I would guess that those are implemented using time constrained.
Well, but there are ones like, I mean, this is a pretty impossible case, but I mean, there's stuff like full simplify, for example, which has a time constraint, which I think only, which constrains on how long it spends in each branch and weird stuff like that.
Right. So time remaining would tell you how much it is doing. If you could somehow get that into full simplify, it would tell you how much time remains in the current transformation that's being attempted.
Well, you can. It could be a side effect of some kind of thing. Okay, this looks good, but we can. By the way, Avery, in annotating this, please note when these things were implemented, right? Just so we know that for if we ever come back to this notebook.
Okay, I can go through and update that.
Or at least what they're implemented as.
Yes. Or, we decided it was a bad idea or whatever else. Okay, string difference. I think that seems like a sequence alignment thing.
Yeah, I was thinking, isn't that something we have or with various methods, distance metrics?
I think we do. I think we should ignore that.
Okay, yeah.
Is this in WFR or is it not?
It's not currently in WFR. It is, you can basically select things from word list based on a part of speech. Our proposal was just to have a WFR function for vowels, consonants, syllables, etc.
But now there's two things there's string vowels, which presumably gets the vowels from, the list. But is the idea of the first thing to give you the list of vowels that are used in English?
Yeah, and I don't understand why English vowels, which I got here, was capital letters. That seems just completely wrong to me. I have to say, I would argue that this could be an actual, just like we have alphabet. It just seems like a useful thing to have, the list of vowels, the list of consonants. They're really pretty, or possibly that it is part of alphabet.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, just like random word, right? You can say part of speech, then alphabet, you should be able to say, oh, look, there's a 2-argument form.
Yeah, well, what does it do?
That gives you properties associated with it.
Well, but it doesn't say what they are, which is a bit upsetting here.
Well, but as you also saw with when you asked,
look,
control equals.
Look. But wait a minute. It's simply not freaking documented here. Okay, this needs to be fixed.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. I'm guessing that's an oversight from Constantine, but yeah, I'll go through and figure
Yeah,
out what the
and that
options
probably should be, right, we probably need just a better scope section and not hide this in generalizations and extensions.
Well, and we also
Yeah.
need it in the documentation at the top here. Just
Right,
something.
I agree with that, but
Right, but I mean, to me, alphabet English
Right, so-
vowels is not crazy. I mean, given that this says index characters, right? And I'm very confused here that is capital letters there. I don't understand that at all.
Yes, and these properties of alphabet comes from the entity values, and I think we could add the vowels and consonants there as properties. In the same way, we have these index characters.
Yeah, no, I
which are
agree, but these shouldn't be capital letters here. There's no reason why index characters should be capital letters, I think, unless there's some special thing about indexes.
Yeah, I can check that because that came from a source that from the ICU library that they use this in uppercase, all these index
All right,
characters.
well, so let's examine all of this, okay?
Could we also support automatic as the first argument? That's the same as the zero argument form.
I would assume yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens if you do this in, if I set the language to I don't know, French or something, do I get a different alphabet for alphabet open close?
well,
Anybody know?
what's options of alphabet?
So I
So
think the
that
default
tells
second
you
argument.
what you'll get.
Okay.
Yeah, long ago we said that we would use English as the option
Yes,
value.
I think we should. I think we should use English as a default. All right. So Francisco and others, please check into this. I don't think it's totally obvious that we shouldn't have a vowels open close. I think that it's such a common thing. It seems like it might be useful. And there are enough kind of like neat little algorithms that make use of the vowels, etc., that it seems worthwhile to me, potentially.
Right, but that could be a handy function calling alphabet behind because
Yes, that's fine.
I think
All right, so Francisco, can you look at this and look at the, I mean, there's clearly a goof up with this here. Right?
yeah, we should explain that the properties are the properties from the entity type alphabet. Yep.
Well, we should list them here is what we should do. We should
Also, yeah.
look somewhere else.
And probably link in the C also the alphabet entity type.
Yes, for sure.
Which I guess it's not there. Yep.
Yeah, it's goofed up, so we'll fix it. Oh boy. These are things for string matching, right?
Yeah,
Right.
they would basically correspond to regular expressions.
Well, I certainly do not support having Japanese character. I mean,
Yeah.
you could, I could possibly, accept ASCII character and non-ASCII or printing character versus non-printing character, but
Well, you could have katakana, hiragana as proper character sets, which there are.
But like,
No, I understand, but we
I
would
mean,
have a
where's
generalized
my
thing.
where's my cuneiform character or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's
I mean, it rapidly devolves.
right. Look, I think here that what we should do is we should have, instead of all of these different things, we should have a generic, character match. I don't know what we should call it.
well, it's
Character
the
type.
character class. I
Character
think
pattern.
is the standard
it's-
term.
Well, fine. So let's just do that. Character class ASCII, character class Japanese. That seems highly sensible to me.
And it doesn't evaluate, right?
Doesn't evaluate.
Well,
Yeah,
one
we'll
other
just-
thing that's one other quick question is, so I was looking at alphabet when we were talking about this. So in alphabet, right. So one thing is you might want this to relate to alphabet where it's similar to alternatives at alphabet, but there are
Yes.
differences because there are some languages that make hair-splitting distinctions about whether their umlauted letters are actually letters or whether they're just letters with diacritical marks. So like, for example, alphabet of German doesn't show any of the umlauts, but Swedish does. And I think that's a real distinction the languages make. It's not, I don't think it's a bug. But then we
No,
might
it's not
want
a
a
bug.
version
It-
of something
and it
like
matters
alphabet.
No, all that was curated. Yes. All the alphabets were curated. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying just that maybe this is something that may already be in this undocumented second argument of alphabet, but presumably there should be a way of getting the actual list of all the characters that this pattern matches, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, give me all of the characters, including the umlauts, even if they're not letters. Just give me all the characters that you would expect to see in German text.
Right. So there's probably a character class or something, character class members or some such other thing. That's the second argument to alphabet. But there's two different things here. One is introducing character class in the string patterns world, which does seem worthwhile to me, and definitely is what we do instead of the millions of these, right?
Yeah.
We have a few special ones that are have their own thing, but otherwise it's just the generic character class. And otherwise support describing whatever is a valid character class should be capable of being listed by some alphabet thing. I mean, arguably, you should just say alphabet of character class of blah, and that would be one way to do it.
Right, we have this full characters property also for alphabet, which is kind of similar.
We don't have any frigging properties for alphabet because we didn't document any of them.
I know, but there is this full characters.
Well, I'm sorry, but nobody's ever going to have known that. I mean, how did that happen? We just didn't document it. Come on. Sigh.
Are the character classes just going to be Unicode blocks?
Well, they're not contiguous ones. It's
Right.
more complicated.
They're
Yeah, they might
fundamentally
be
going to be
different.
regular expressions under the hood.
And I don't know what this
Yeah.
is, and I've never seen this before.
All right. Well, I guess, Francisco, you're a native Spanish speaker. I mean, do those diacritical combinations actually appear in Spanish?
Well, what the heck is this for English?
No, yeah, the problem is that, for example, when I was looking at this property, they include everything that will be valid in a document. For example, and because the European Union considers all the characters valid in documents, they include, for example, all the special characters in English, in German.
Oh, wait, excuse me. I mean, this is like Ethelred. I'm sure Ethelred is the compatibility with 1,000 years ago can be written with like this, right? Or more than 1,000 years ago. I mean, that's not English, is it?
No, that's right. So that's the list of all the characters that might appear in documents that are valid, and
How can it?
not necessarily
According to
from
who? According
actual
to
English.
you.
According to Ethelfred.
Ethelred, I believe he was.
But now, it was this derived empirically by just looking at a bunch of text and getting the letters out, or where did this come from?
I'm not sure. That comes also from the CLDR project.
Okay,
So
this
from
needs
the ICU
investigation.
library, and
maybe now that Brexit has happened, the set of full characters in English might have changed.
English is still official in the UA. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know what, maybe the Faroe Islands, or no, I don't know. They probably have Danish. I don't know. Okay.
Right, but probably we will need a curated list of actual characters with the valid combinations of native words. As that
Fine.
was-
So there's work to be done here.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on a bit. Set file attributes. I thought we had that. That's the chmod type functionality. I thought we built that finally.
I haven't found that functionality implemented. I mean, Constantine added ways to read it. So if you do like information of file of something, you'll get the file attributes listed out. But
seems useful. I mean, it's not the highest priority, but it seems useful. I think we should preserve that as a thing we want.
Could that also extend to set permissions, having file as a first argument?
Yes.
Right. I mean, yeah, that
Oh, it's
was the problem that we ran into, right? That the permissions as, defined by the cloud is different from permissions on the file system. So
Yeah,
the
that'd be different
permissions
between
become
Windows and-
ambiguous.
I personally think what we should do is just say set permissions, and this p string thing should work for files. And if we can convert some of the cloud permissions symbolic structure to the desktop, so be it. But what we can't convert, we should just error out on. See what I'm saying? I mean, something like this, read owner, read, write, execute, that we can do, you know.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to have error handling no matter what. For
yeah, so I think
ability
we
to
should
set
try
some-
and put it in. I agree. I'm changing my mind. I agree. We should try and put it into set permissions and just have it work as best it can. Given that there is a p string thing here anyway,
Mhm.
surely we show an example of that. Surely we show an example. Oh gosh.
I think.
Oh, for goodness sake. Come on, guys. Okay, another bug.
Okay, nobody here is responsible for cloud documentation.
We will.
I don't
pass
think
it
this
along.
is cloud, but I mean, this is, yes.
Yes, this is exclusively for cloud objects.
Yeah, those two examples and basic examples covered, I think, for public and private.
Oh, I see that. That's what they mean by strings, not, you know,
RWX.
Yeah, right. Okay, this requires investigation, and perhaps we can, we have to decide if we're supporting RWX or whatever it is for the cloud, and perhaps we need a separate thing, set file permissions. I'm not sure. Requires investigation, but this is alive. All right, let's try and do just a couple more.
I mean, this was on the LCC agenda, so I don't know why that wasn't noted here, but
okay, well, it was a minor goof. Okay, and activate complete. I don't think this is another Angel's, impenetrable, irresistible forces, immovable objects, etc. type situations, and I don't think we should. I don't think there's any more. I don't think there's anything useful we can get from doing that further. Inflected forms is a long time project that we really want to see done. Francisco, maybe you could speak to that. That's a linguistic curation project, right?
Yes, I think that will be related to all the things we are doing about language data, etc.
Okay, so I'm going to assume you will take this, and we'll see that and it should be in the global project list. This is currently a lower priority than 2017.
Because if that's for right, because also there was this project of word data that they were factoring all these word entity type. That's under Alan's actually, but yes, I can work with him. Yep.
Okay, phonemes. Now I thought we were making this active because now it was being dovetailed with the audio stuff.
I haven't heard that part of the discussion. I mean, we talked some years ago about phonemes and phones as being linguistic data.
This is supposedly active.
Okay.
Alan and Johan should be consulted on this.
We also started designing an entity type for phonemes, but we never finished that. So maybe we should continue on that project.
That is what should be done. Yeah. Cyclic arrays. We have discussed this multiple times, and I think it's something that deserves further discussion. And it's possibly related to the Future of Arrays project.
What is this exactly?
This is more like a structured array type.
Okay.
And I think Jan will get at some point. It's just that he's working on more important linear algebra related structure types.
Is it in fact of that type? I mean, is it cyclic array would be a wrapper, you're saying?
Yes. So we store one block and then we say, this is a block of 3 by 3, but the array is 1,000,000 by 1,000,000. And it knows how to extract any element, etc.
So it's a little bit related to a Toeplitz matrix or something like that?
It's the same kind of idea, storing a much smaller piece of information to reconstruct.
Yeah,
the whole
and
array.
we've got, I mean, even yesterday we were reviewing van der Waals matrices and things like this. So this seems like a concept that is much simpler than many of these linear algebra type concepts. So it seems like a good thing. So you say this is on the path.
Yes, I think it is.
Let's make sure that we know that. Okay, cyclic array is probably the name that we want for it. How are we doing here? Let's see. Export string. Did we ever get this?
I haven't seen a fully functional version of it. I know there were discussions of this at various points in the past, but I haven't seen a user.
Maybe we in fact have this, but from having external evaluate. Maybe we built this, and maybe we should just expose it.
I think we at least have import string for these. I think I've used it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so somebody investigate, please. Ask the import-export team. Avery, I think that's for you.
Yep, got
it. This whole thing, this is something we've asked for millions of years. It still seems useful to me. Comments?
Yeah, I would find it useful too. And being able to read numbers in E's and D's notations.
Yeah, I think we want this. All right, we should wrap here. To be continued another time. This has been a useful, I mean, it's actually fairly encouraging. I mean, a lot of the stuff we've discussed here has either been done or, you know, this is really good.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up on those items, and we've got.
I mean, I don't know how much when we get down to something like this.
Yeah, none of these sections are enormous. Even like regions or Charles or a handful of things. So when we get there, we'll have those individual people here as well.
The second largest group is the UAFE one.
I see. This is all sensible stuff. This is really good for us to go through this. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. And see you later.